What you're about to explore is not just another space disaster scenario. It's a journey into one of the most terrifying what-ifs in modern astronomy. The question of what would actually happen if a massive interstellar comet, older than our own solar system, slammed into Earth. Imagine a cosmic visitor so ancient that it predates the sun, so fast that nothing in our planetary neighborhood even compares, and so powerful that a single impact would erase nearly all life on our world. This is 3I Atlas, only the third confirmed interstellar object humanity has ever discovered. A wandering metal-rich comet born in the violent early days of the Milky Way, forged long before Earth even existed. It has drifted across the galaxy for billions of years, untouched, unseen, and unknown, until it finally crossed paths with our solar system. But to understand why 3I Atlas is so terrifying, we need to look at the first interstellar visitor we ever detected, Oumuamua. You probably remember the headlines. The long, cigar-shaped mystery rock that came screaming through our solar system at impossible speeds. No comet tail, no normal behavior, just a strange acceleration, bizarre shape, and a trajectory that made scientists question everything from comet physics to alien technology. But as strange as Oumuamua was, it is nothing compared to 3I Atlas. Because while Oumuamua was relatively small, harmless, and just passing through, 3I Atlas is enormous. Potentially 14 times larger, coated with ancient metals, venting carbon dioxide ice, and moving with a velocity that makes even large asteroids look slow. This thing is a true cosmic relic, a piece of the galaxy's deep past, a traveler from an era of violent starbirth, supernovas, and chaotic gravity, a frozen witness to a time when the universe was far younger and far more dangerous. And here's the shocking part. If 3I Atlas ever hit Earth, even by the slightest change of trajectory, it wouldn't just cause damage. It wouldn't just destroy cities or continents. It would unleash more than 4 times the destructive energy of the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. Superheated plasma, firestorms across continents, planet-wide tsunamis, earthquakes beyond the Richter scale, years of darkness and freezing temperatures, and finally a greenhouse rebound so intense that surviving life would be cooked after being.
For most of human history, the night sky has been a silent dome, unchanging, predictable, a place where stars followed patterns and comets appeared in cycles like clockwork. But everything changed in 2017, when something strange, unexpected, and completely unfamiliar drifted into our solar system. It wasn't a comet. It wasn't an asteroid. It wasn't anything anyone had seen before. It was long, thin, and moved in a way that broke every rule of astronomy. They named it 1I Oumuamua, meaning a messenger from far away arriving first. And that name proved more accurate than anyone expected. Because Oumuamua wasn't just a rock, it was a sign that the universe was far more active, far more dangerous, and far more unpredictable than we had ever imagined. It showed us that interstellar visitors were not a myth. They were real. They were out there. And sometimes they would wander right into our cosmic backyard. Astronomers didn't even realize what Oumuamua was until it was already leaving. By the time we figured out its origin, it had already passed Earth, past Mars, slipped past Jupiter, and was racing toward deep space like a stone thrown from another galaxy. It had been discovered too late, just a small streak of light on telescopes, moving far too fast to be a local object. That moment changed everything. If one interstellar object could wander here by accident, then there had to be more. Millions, maybe billions, drifting through the galaxy like cosmic debris. It meant that the solar system wasn't isolated at all. It was porous, open, vulnerable. And then, 2 years later, the second visitor arrived. This time, the world was ready. In 2019, a comet named 2I Borisov entered the solar system, Unlike Oumuamua, this one looked like a typical comet, icy, glowing, with a long tail of dust, but its speed revealed the truth. It was moving too fast to be local. It wasn't bound to the sun. It wasn't born in our cosmic neighborhood. Borisov was from another star system entirely. And that raised a new question, one far more frightening than anything scientists had imagined after Oumuamua. If interstellar objects are entering the solar system so often, how many more have passed through unseen? How many dangerous ones came close without us noticing? How many times has Earth been lucky without realizing it? This was the question that would eventually connect the stories of Oumuamua, Borisov, and the object that truly captured our fear, 3I, Atlas. But before that, the world had to come to terms with what Borisov really meant. The first interstellar visitor, Oumuamua, could have been a fluke, a rare accident, something we might never see again. But the second? That confirmed it. Interstellar objects were not rare. They were everywhere. It was as if the galaxy had always been sending visitors our way. We just never had the technology to see them. Scientists began to wonder if the solar system acted like a kind of drift zone, a place where objects traveling between star systems occasionally pass through. Some might move safely by, others might tumble into the sun, and a few, if unlucky, might cross paths with Earth in catastrophic ways. But even as Borisov was being studied, even as telescopes focused on its icy tail, the question lingering in every astronomer's mind was simple. What else was out there? What was still coming? The answer appeared 6 years later. Unlike the first visitor, which slipped past unnoticed, and unlike the second, which behaved like a typical comet, the third visitor was something different, something much older, something far more mysterious. It entered the solar system in 2025 and was detected almost by accident. At first, astronomers thought it was just another comet breaking apart near the sun, but then they calculated its speed, its trajectory, its chemical signatures, and that's when everything changed. This thing wasn't from here, wasn't from any known region of nearby space, wasn't even chemically similar to objects formed within our galaxy's thin disk, the region where our sun and most familiar stars were born. It was older, much older, possibly twice the age of the solar system. It had traveled through ancient star clusters. It had drifted through the Milky Way when Earth didn't even exist. And unlike the others, this object had the potential to be enormous, possibly miles wide, something capable of reshaping an entire planet if it ever collided with one. This was the third interstellar visitor. This was 3I Atlas. While Oumuamua had been small, strange, and confusing, and Borisov had been a typical comet from elsewhere, Atlas was something else entirely. It was metallic, heavy, ancient, with a composition that didn't match anything in our cosmic neighborhood. It was as if a fragment of the early galaxy itself had drifted into our sun's domain. Scientists found metals, nickel, iron, and other elements in its coma, the glowing cloud that formed as sunlight warmed its icy surface. This was bizarre. Normal comets contain dust and ice, not heavy metals. Those metals suggested Atlas had been born in a place filled with extreme radiation and violence, in a star-forming region from the earliest ages of the Milky Way. But the most shocking detail wasn't what Atlas was made of. It was how fast it was moving. 61 kilometers per second. To the human mind, that number means nothing. But in cosmic terms, it means this. Atlas had the power to strike a planet with unimaginable force, enough to rival the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs, enough to carve a crater hundreds of kilometers wide, enough to reset life on Earth. This is why Atlas terrified scientists more than anything before it. Not because it was going to hit Earth, it wasn't. Not because it was the biggest comet ever found, it wasn't. but because it proved something far more dangerous. If one interstellar object could have approached Earth from a slightly different angle, we would have had no time to stop it, no time to prepare, no time to survive. It was the first true example of an interstellar object big enough to cause a planetary extinction, and it arrived silently, without warning, from the darkness between the stars. This realization forced scientists to rethink everything they knew about cosmic threats. They had spent decades watching asteroids within the solar system, mapping them, tracking them, giving them names. But interstellar visitors, those were different. They did not orbit the sun. They did not follow predictable paths. They did not give us the luxury of time. They came in fast. They came in silently. They came in from directions telescopes weren't watching. And because they came from deep space, they were nearly impossible to detect until they were already close. Atlas was a message, a warning, a reminder that the universe is not our friend. It does not care about life. It does not care about Earth. Objects like Atlas had been drifting for billions of years, and colliding with planets was simply part of the cosmic cycle. It made scientists question how many times Earth had been struck by interstellar objects in the past, because some impacts in Earth's geological record seemed too powerful, too strange, too chemically unusual to have come from normal asteroids. Were there other interstellar impacts hidden beneath Earth's oceans? Were there craters made by objects older than the solar system itself? Has Earth been reshaped by visitors from deep space more than we realize? These questions became more important than ever after Atlas entered the solar system. Its mere existence proved that our cosmic environment was far more dynamic and far more dangerous than we had ever believed. And yet, even with all the fear and uncertainty Atlas had brought, something else happened, something unexpected, something that brought curiosity, excitement, and a sense of wonder back into astronomy. Atlas gave scientists a chance to study a piece of the ancient galaxy up close. It offered clues about how planets formed, how the Milky Way evolved, and how materials travel between star systems. For the first time, humanity had a direct look at something billions of years older than the sun. Atlas wasn't just a threat. It was a story, a survivor of time itself, a messenger carrying secrets from the birth of the galaxy. It was proof that the Milky Way is alive, active, and constantly moving objects around like pieces on a cosmic chessboard. And Earth, sitting quietly around a small yellow star, is not nearly as safe as we once believed. Soon as Atlas moved deeper into the solar system, scientists would begin to explore its true nature, its origin, its speed, its composition, and most importantly, the catastrophic possibilities of what if it ever struck Earth. And that is where the story becomes truly terrifying.
As the world moved into the final weeks before the predicted near miss or impact of 3I/Atlas, an unusual calm settled over the planet. Not a peaceful calm, but the kind that exists only in the moments before a storm, when everything feels too still, too quiet, and too perfectly suspended. Governments continued to say that Earth was safe. NASA repeated the same statements. The European Space Agency echoed them. The Chinese National Space Administration released polished videos showing confident-looking scientists explaining how trajectories fluctuate, but there is no cause for alarm. But the silence underneath all these reassurances told a different story. People around the world could sense a tension no announcement could erase. It was in the way traffic moved slower than usual, in the way strangers looked at each other too long, in the way nights felt heavier, even windless. Humanity was waiting for truth, for disaster, for a miracle. No one really knew, And high above, at the International Observation Station, Dr. Kessler and her team finally received the newest update from the VLX Array telescope. The data was raw, not processed or smoothed or interpreted. It came in as jagged lines and dense numerical blocks, the kind that only people who lived and breathed space could understand at a glance. What they saw instantly stole the air from the room. 3I/Atlas wasn't slowing down. It wasn't veering off. It wasn't drifting into a safe path. It was accelerating, slightly, subtly, but undeniably toward the inner solar system, and its projected path now crossed dangerously close to Earth's orbital plane. Kessler didn't speak at first. She only placed a hand over her mouth and stared. Other scientists tried to recalculate, hoping it was an anomaly, a sensor misalignment, a software bug. But after the fourth confirmation, no one could hide from the truth. Something had altered the object's course, and no natural explanation made sense. In emergency conferences held secretly at 3 a.m., top astrophysicists debated possibilities. A gravitational nudge from an unseen body? Impossible. Nothing large enough existed in that region. A collision with a smaller rock? That would have created a debris trail. There was none. Outgassing, like a comet? But 3I/Atlas wasn't icy. It was dry, metallic, ancient. Something pushed it. Something moved it. And no one could agree on what that something was. Governments faced a decision they had never prepared for, whether to reveal the truth or hide it until the very last moment. Most chose silence, not because they were cruel, but because panic itself could cause more damage than the threat in the sky. Entire economies could collapse in hours. Millions might flee cities. Chaos could ignite faster than any emergency plan could contain. Yet word still leaked. It always did. Astronomers who monitored the object independently began posting cryptic updates online. Amateur skywatchers noticed unusual brightness changes. A few reliable journalists hinted that official predictions may be overly optimistic. Slowly, the world began to piece together the puzzle, and fear, quiet but growing, returned. Kessler, unable to sit with the secret, called an emergency session with her international team. They weren't politicians. They weren't strategists. They were scientists, built from curiosity, honesty, and responsibility. And the truth mattered to them, even if they couldn't say it openly. The team began preparing for every scenario, including the worst one. They studied 3I/Atlas's composition, its strange metallic signature, its ancient interstellar origin, and most unsettling of all, the unnatural wave-like patterns pulsing from its surface, as if something inside the object moved or reacted to light from the sun. In one frame of deep spectrum imaging, the surface appeared to shift. In another, it rippled. And in the last sequence received that night, for a fraction of a second, a structure emerged, too straight, too geometrical to be natural, before fading again into noise. Kessler replayed the clip 50 times. Her eyes went dry. The hairs on her arms stood up. "What is that?" whispered one of the astrophysicists. Kessler didn't answer. She wasn't sure she could. The world's most advanced observatories continued collecting data around the clock. 3I/Atlas was coming closer now, visible through mid-level telescopes. It glowed faintly, a small but bright bead moving slowly across the night sky. People around the world gathered on rooftops and hills, trying to spot it, unaware of the magnitude of what they were seeing. By now, the object's unnatural acceleration had increased again, but this time the pattern was rhythmic, pulsing, almost alive.
In a secret underground briefing room beneath the European Space Operations Center, fear finally broke through the scientific composure. Military representatives sat through the meeting stone-faced, some gripping their pens too tightly. Others scribbled meaningless notes because their hands needed to do something, anything. A single question dominated the meeting. Was 3I/Atlas a threat? Or was it something entirely different? Some insisted that it was just a rock behaving strangely. Others argued that interstellar objects didn't behave at all. They simply moved, unaffected, untouched. But 3I/Atlas almost felt like it was adjusting itself, choosing its path rather than following one. The possibility that something inside it was controlling its motion couldn't be dismissed anymore. Meanwhile, humanity reacted in its own unpredictable ways. Some people started preparing survival shelters. Some filmed goodbye videos just in case. Some traveled to be with family. Religious leaders declared global prayer days. Others refused to believe anything unusual was happening at all, claiming it was just another media exaggeration. Across social media platforms, the names 3I, Atlas, and Interstellar Visitor trended constantly. Theories spread faster than facts. Some claimed the object was a ship. Some said it was a cosmic sign. Some insisted it was a weapon from an unknown civilization. And through all the noise, one quiet truth remained. None of them actually knew. In the last week before closest approach, 3I/Atlas began emitting small bursts of infrared radiation. They were controlled, periodic, and mathematical in spacing. Not random, not chaotic. Something with intention produced them. Kessler's team recorded every burst, and one physicist noticed a pattern hidden in the noise. When they decoded the intervals matched the Fibonacci sequence, nature's most elegant mathematical spiral, a pattern used by living systems, by plants, by shells, by galaxies. It was impossible, and yet it was real. Kessler realized that if the bursts continued, they could form a complete message, a signal, not in language, but in numbers, the most universal communication in the cosmos. The acceleration also continued, precisely during each burst, suggesting the object might not be merely drifting toward Earth, but responding to something, or seeking something. Back on Earth, the sky entered the global spotlight. People looked upward more in those weeks than any other time in the 21st century. Telescopes sold out everywhere. Children asked questions parents couldn't answer. The world felt connected, unified in shared fear and wonder. What does it want? Why is it here? Is it going to hit us? Questions flowed endlessly, but none had answers. As 3I/Atlas reached the final stretch before its closest possible intersection with Earth, its brightness jumped dramatically, far brighter than a rock should reflect. It became visible to the naked eye as a steady white-blue star moving uncannily fast across the night sky. And in its last recorded spectral scan that night, for the first time in history, scientists detected something no one could explain without shaking: an active energy signature. Not from the sun, not from reflection, from inside the object. Kessler stared at the scan as her hands trembled. The room was so quiet that she could hear her own heartbeat. "Whatever 3I/Atlas is," she murmured, "it's waking up." And outside, the world unknowingly slept under a sky carrying an interstellar visitor, one that might collide with Earth, miss it by inches, or reveal something far more extraordinary than anyone expected. Only time would tell.
No one on Earth could explain why the sunrise looked wrong that morning. It was subtle at first, barely noticeable, like a trick of the atmosphere or the result of some distant wildfire haze. But as the light spread across continents, millions of people sensed it instantly. The sky wasn't its usual shade. The colors looked deeper, heavier, more metallic, as if brushed with faint strokes of copper and violet. Birds hesitated in their early flights. Animals stood unusually still. Humans, without understanding why, felt a pressure behind their foreheads. A quiet whisper of instinct, telling them something enormous was shifting above. Kessler hadn't slept in 2 days. She sat at her station aboard the orbiting research module, replaying the latest spectral scans. 3I Atlas was now close enough that its energy pulses were registering through Earth's upper atmosphere. The signals weren't harmful, not yet, but they were strong enough to interfere with radio frequencies. Static crackled across global networks. GPS readings jumped by several meters at a time. Deep-sea sensors registered faint tremors, as if the planet's magnetic lines were tightening and loosening too quickly. Her assistant rushed in, carrying a tablet. "Another burst," he said breathlessly. "Stronger than the last, and this time it had structure." Kessler took the tablet and stared at the data. The pulse wasn't random. It formed a repeating curve, a sequence she recognized instantly. This time, it wasn't the Fibonacci pattern. It was something even more unsettling. A prime number cascade, a marker of intelligence, a cosmic signature used in SETI protocols for decades. It was communicating. Not in a way humans could yet understand, but the intention was unmistakable. It wasn't noise. It wasn't natural. And as the pulse spread outward, Earth felt the ripple like a subtle shiver. All over the planet, compasses drifted westward for 2 or 3 seconds before correcting themselves. In Alaska, scientists recorded auroras that shouldn't have existed at that time of day. In Japan, fishermen reported their sonar systems glitching. In Pakistan, India, Egypt, Brazil, people everywhere looked up because something told them to. Meanwhile, 3I Atlas grew brighter, much brighter. It now had a tail, not like a comet glowing and gaseous, but thin, linear, razor-straight as if a beam of light was being emitted from its surface. Amateur astronomers captured the phenomenon and uploaded it to the internet. The footage spread instantly. It didn't take long before nearly every news channel replayed the same chilling frame. The interstellar object seemed to be powering up. Governments scrambled into emergency meetings. They could no longer dismiss it as harmless. Something approaching Earth with that kind of energy signature was beyond any known natural object. It wasn't behaving like a rock or a comet. It was behaving like a machine, and it was coming fast. At the European Space Command bunker, analysts monitored the gravitational shifts around the object. It was altering its trajectory again, the same pattern as before, but with more precision, more control. It was as if 3I Atlas were responding to something Earth emitted, or perhaps mapping something, searching, analyzing. "What if it's scanning us?" someone whispered during the briefing. No one answered. They didn't need to. Every person in that room felt the weight of the possibility. By midday, strange phenomena multiplied across the globe. Electrical grids flickered, not out, just flickered like lights affected by distant lightning. People felt tingles in their arms and legs. Phones vibrated without notifications. Dogs barked at empty corners. Airplane pilots reported unusual turbulence at high altitudes. Violent bursts followed by unnatural calm, as if pockets of the atmosphere were being compressed and loosened too quickly. And then came the sound. A low, distant hum, not loud, but everywhere. It drifted through cities and countryside alike. People paused, wondering if it came from the Earth or the sky or somewhere in between. Scientists detected no seismic activity. Musicians later described it as the faint, eerie tone of a single vibrating string. It lasted only 20 seconds, but during those 20 seconds, everyone on Earth felt connected by a shared moment of absolute confusion. Kessler replayed the audio feed again and again. The hum wasn't random. It matched the rhythm of the prime number pulses emitted by 3I Atlas, a synchronized echo, a planetary resonance. "This is impossible," she whispered. But it was happening. As the planet wrestled with fear and fascination, the next wave struck harder. High-altitude clouds formed geometric shapes, perfect spirals and hexagons. Meteorologists reported never seen anything like it. The shape didn't move with wind currents. They stayed fixed, locked into place as if following invisible markers in the sky. Then the ocean reacted. Tides rose by several centimeters worldwide, not enough to cause damage, but enough to confuse coastal monitoring stations. The water seemed to breathe, pulling faster, surging harder, as if influenced by a shifting gravitational presence. One-eye atlas was close enough now that telescopes saw details on its surface. Dark grooves, metallic edges, patterns that resembled circuitry more than geology. Some scientists insisted they were just shadows. Others believed Earth was looking at something ancient, engineered, and unknown. The world's space agencies launched their final observation probes, small, fast, equipped with high-resolution instruments. But the probes malfunctioned within minutes of approaching the object. Their signals scrambled, their cameras froze, and then they shut down one by one, as if something inside the object disabled them intentionally. Humanity's last attempts to get a close-up view had failed. Panic spread through cities. Crowds gathered in public squares to watch the sky. Schools closed early. Stock markets dipped. Conspiracy groups claimed the end had come. Religious leaders urged calm while quietly preparing for the worst. Scientists argued endlessly, their voices cracking from exhaustion. And then, something extraordinary occurred. At 9:41 p.m. UTC, One-Eye Atlas emitted a burst of blue-white light that illuminated half the sky. It wasn't blinding, not like an explosion, but soft, like moonlight, intensified 1,000 times. It swept across continents in a slow wave. People stepped out onto rooftops, balconies, and roads, staring upward in stunned silence. The light wasn't destructive. It didn't burn or blind. It felt warm, almost comforting. A planetary spotlight, gentle yet impossible to ignore. And then the visions began. Not hallucinations, flashes of binary sequences imprinted directly into the sky. Lines of light, patterns, graphs. They lasted only a few seconds each, too fast for the human eye, but perfectly captured by cameras and satellites. Kessler's team decoded the first frame. It wasn't random data. It was a map. Not of star systems, not of galaxies. A map of Earth's magnetic field, updated in real time. One-Eye Atlas wasn't drifting toward Earth by accident. It was navigating, steering, using Earth's magnetic signature as a guide. It was approaching with intention. Around midnight, lightning storms formed simultaneously over 5 oceans. No clouds, no rain, just streaks of electric fire arcing across empty skies. The storms lasted only minutes before vanishing again. Scientists were baffled. Lightning without atmospheric buildup was unheard of. In remote areas of Siberia, witnesses reported pillars of pale light rising from the ground, as if the Earth itself was sending signals upward. Deep-sea instruments detected unusual vibrations from the ocean floor, not seismic, cyclic, pulsing. It was as if Earth was responding. The object continued its silent descent, growing brighter each hour. Panic mixed with awe. Governments ordered citizens indoors, planes were grounded, emergency systems stood by, yet the world felt strangely calm, as if bracing for a revelation rather than destruction. Finally, at 3:12 p.m. UTC, the object performed the most shocking action so far. It slowed. Not naturally, not because of gravity. It decelerated, with invisible forces that no natural object possessed. Somewhere deep in her chest, Kessler felt a shift, not of fear, but of understanding. This wasn't an attack. This wasn't a collision. This was arrival. She watched the screens as the object rotated slightly, revealing a symmetrical pattern on its underside, sharp-edged, geometric, unmistakably artificial. It glowed faintly with internal light, pulsing like a heartbeat. And at that same moment, millions of people around the world reported the same sensation, a pressure behind the eyes, a vibration in the bones, the feeling of being watched, not with hostility, but with ancient curiosity. The object emitted one final pulse, slow, deep, and resonant. The hum returned, louder this time.
And then, in a moment that would be studied for centuries, the object stopped moving entirely relative to Earth, hovering in space, as if waiting. Waiting for what? A response, a signal, or something hidden deep within humanity's past to awaken. The world stood breathless, because for the first time since life began on Earth, humanity wasn't looking into the void of space, the void was looking back.
The world held its breath in the moments after 3i Atlas stopped. It hovered in the darkness like an ancient monument suspended in the void, glowing faintly with internal light. Every telescope on Earth focused on that single point in the sky. Every digital screen, every newsroom, every living room, everywhere, the same image. The visitor from the stars standing still, as if deciding its next move. Kessler stared at the monitors in the observation station, her heartbeat pulsing painfully in her ears. Never in recorded history had a celestial object halted its momentum in such a deliberate, unnatural way. Space had rules, strict and unforgiving. Objects moved, they hurtled, they drifted. They did not stop. Yet here it was. The scientists around her whispered theories in shaky voices. Magnetic braking? Impossible. Gravitational manipulation? Beyond known physics. Visible thrusters? None detected. An internal energy field? The reading showed something like it, but something beyond any human comprehension. But Kessler saw none of those details. She was staring at the glow deep in its structure, subtle, rhythmic like a heartbeat. She felt an uncomfortable sensation building in her chest, a quiet tug between curiosity and fear. Because if something this advanced came from the stars, then whatever had built it possessed a knowledge older than civilization itself. Governments declared global silence protocols, military forces moved into ready positions, satellites shifted, capturing every angle. Nuclear failsafes were engaged, not as a threat, but out of pure survival instinct. Humanity had never been this close to an intelligent presence. The oldest instincts, buried deep in the DNA of every species, awakened. Fight, flight, or freeze. Earth froze. For 6 long minutes, nothing happened. The object remained perfectly motionless, as if observing something, as if thinking. And then the sky changed again. A single beam of white light shot downward, not toward a city, not toward a military site, not toward any strategic location. It aimed at the most unexpected place, an uninhabited region of the Pacific Ocean, thousands of kilometers from land. It wasn't a weapon, it didn't explode, it barely disturbed the water, but sensors across the globe recorded a spike in electromagnetic activity the moment it touched the ocean's surface. A vibration spread outward, silent, invisible, but immense. Deep ocean instruments registered something colossal awakening below. For a moment, the sea's magnetic signature fluctuated wildly, as if the entire ocean floor had become a resonating chamber. Then, the water glowed. A soft blue light pulsed beneath the waves, growing brighter, then dimmer, then brighter again. It was communicating. Not with people, not with satellites, but with something in the sea. Kessler felt the blood drain from her face. "What is it doing?" whispered one of her analysts. She didn't know, but she feared the answer. Reports flooded in. Underwater microphones, hydrophones, caught strange patterns echoing across the Pacific. Not whale calls, not seismic tremors. They were too precise, too mechanical, too intentional. The sounds formed repeating sequences uncannily similar to the prime number pulses the object had emitted earlier. 3i Atlas was sending a message, and the ocean was responding. More terrifying still, deep-sea scanners picked up movement, massive, coordinated movement from far below the surface, a place no submarine had ever reached. News networks scrambled to understand the event. Experts argued, viewers panicked, social media exploded with fear and fascination. Humanity suddenly felt smaller than ever before, as if it had been living in a house all its life, only to discover a hidden door leading to a massive, ancient chamber beneath the floor. But the real shock was still coming.
At 3:41 a.m. UTC, the beam retracted, pulling its light back into the body of 3I Atlas. The water dimmed, the sea stilled. For a moment, it felt like the world had returned to normal. Then the object rotated. Very slowly, as if revealing a new face, a circular structure on its surface unfolded. Kessler watched in disbelief. The pattern resembled an iris, an eye opening. Metallic petals peeled back. Beneath them, something glowed with a deep blue light. The eye pointed directly at Earth. The hum returned. Not in the distance this time, but inside, every radio, every speaker, every instrument tuned to electromagnetic frequencies. The sound vibrated, not harshly but deeply, like a cosmic heartbeat amplified into every corner of the world. Lights flickered. Power grids dimmed. Birds scattered. People clutched their heads, feeling a pressure behind their eyes, as if the object was touching the entire planet's nervous system. And then, in every language, on every device capable of producing sound, a voice-like pattern emerged. Not words, not speech. Tones, layered and measured, forming a structure that bypassed language and hit the mind directly. Humanity heard the closest thing to a message it ever had. Kessler felt herself trembling uncontrollably. "It's not attacking," she whispered. "It's identifying itself." Somewhere in the world, someone fainted. Somewhere else, someone cried. Millions stood rooted in place, unable to understand why the tones felt familiar, not in meaning but in rhythm, as if tapping into a memory buried deep in the human brain. Ancient, primal, shared. Just as the tones reached their peak, the sky ruptured with light. No explosion, no heat, just a sudden wash of white that made shadows disappear for a heartbeat. Then the light faded, and the message stopped. People stared upward, breathless. The atmosphere felt lighter, warmer, as if the entire planet had exhaled. But then the real impact struck. Satellites orbiting Earth began relaying new data. Every sensor pointed toward the Pacific recorded the same impossible reading. Something enormous had risen from the ocean floor. Not a creature, not a rock, a structure. Metallic, circular, massive, thousands of years old. Something Earth had never known it had. The world gasped as the structure emitted the same prime number sequence. 3I Atlas responded. It wasn't just arriving, it was reconnecting. Not with humanity, but with something buried deep beneath Earth long before humans existed. Kessler's eyes filled with tears, not of fear, but of devastating realization. "They've been here," she whispered. "Something or someone came here long before us." The sky pulsed again. The sea glowed brighter. And Earth understood for the first time that it wasn't watching the arrival of something new. It was witnessing a reunion. Something ancient was waking, and the visitor from the stars had come home. The world had not yet recovered from the arrival of 3I/Atlas when the next wave of events began. The ocean beneath the Pacific still shimmered faintly from the comet's pulse, a subtle, otherworldly glow that refused to fade. Ships reported unusual electromagnetic interference. Submarines couldn't hold steady, drifting slightly off course as if invisible hands were tugging at them. Satellites circled overhead, capturing faint ripples across the Earth's magnetic field, anomalies no one could explain. And still, humanity waited, breathless, not knowing whether to fear or marvel. Kessler remained at her post, eyes glued to the monitors. The ancient structure, now partially revealed beneath the waves, appeared more enormous with every new scan. Circular in design, it spanned hundreds of kilometers. Its metal glimmered faintly, reflecting sunlight even through miles of water. Geometric lines etched across its surface suggested a design beyond natural formation, evidence of deliberate construction. The structure was old, unimaginably old, but the material did not appear corroded. It was pristine, as if preserved by some unseen force, and it pulsed lightly, a rhythm in sync with the signals from 3I/Atlas. This isn't just a comet. It's a sentinel, a guide, something built to interact with... Her assistant leaned closer, voice shaky. Interact
with what? Earth, Kessler said, or something inside it. Around the world, people noticed strange phenomena repeating and escalating. The sky shifted color, turning to deep violet at times and to pale green at others. Electrical grids experienced bursts of overload, lights flickering, devices resetting. Birds and marine life reacted to the changes with unusual behaviors. For some, the effect was subtle, barely perceptible. For others, it was intense, as though the planet itself were vibrating in response to a new, unseen rhythm. The pattern was everywhere, undeniable and synchronized. Then came the tremors. Small at first, scattered across the Pacific Ocean floor, earthquakes began spreading outward. Deep, low rumbles, more felt than heard, caused mild tremors on distant coastlines. Tsunamis were not triggered, but ocean currents shifted inexplicably. Scientists confirmed that the vibrations corresponded with the pulses of 3I/Atlas and the rising structure below the ocean. It was as though the planet itself had become a resonating instrument, tuned to the frequencies of the interstellar object. At the observation station, Kessler's team worked furiously, decoding the latest data. The patterns in the electromagnetic pulses had grown more complex. This was no simple message. It was a multi-layered communication, mathematical in structure, yet undeniably purposeful. The sequences repeated in ways that mirrored natural systems: fractals, spirals, oscillations, rhythms found in DNA, in planetary orbits, even in the growth patterns of plants. Someone was speaking in a language that combined the universal constants of mathematics with the rhythms of life itself. And then, for the first time, it responded to Earth's own emissions. An experimental broadcast, beamed through the largest array of synchronized satellites, sent a simple pulse back in return. The response from 3I/Atlas was immediate. The glow intensified, ripples surged across the ocean, and the eye of the object opened wider, revealing inner layers of luminescence. The structure beneath the water reacted simultaneously, its surface vibrating and glowing in tandem. Energy flowed between them like a bridge, connecting the interstellar visitor and the ancient sentinel. It was as if the two had been waiting for each other for eons. Meanwhile, civilians around the world experienced the phenomenon in inexplicable ways. Many reported a sense of clarity, a connection to something larger than themselves. People spoke of visions, not dreams, but impressions of distant stars, swirling galaxies, and intricate designs beyond human comprehension. Others experienced fear and disorientation, unable to comprehend what they were seeing or feeling. But all of humanity, whether aware or not, was sensing a shift, an awakening of forces that had slumbered beneath the surface of the planet for billions of years. Kessler realized that the structure beneath the ocean was not just a relic. It was a network, a communication device, a memory. And 3I/Atlas was the key. The comet had not come merely to pass through the solar system. It had come to reconnect, to reactivate something already on Earth. The interstellar object and the oceanic structure shared a relationship older than human history, perhaps older than life itself. And now, that relationship was stirring the planet awake. The first physical consequences on Earth were subtle but undeniable. Magnetic compasses wavered unpredictably. Long-range flights experienced minor but dangerous navigational errors. Satellites drifted from precise orbits. Geologists recorded patterns in tectonic activity that had never been documented. And then, storms intensified in unusual ways. Hurricanes formed faster than predicted. Lightning struck in linear patterns across the sky. And auroras shimmered at latitudes far from the poles. None of it was catastrophic yet, but it was enough to make the world pause and wonder if something beyond human control had taken the reins of nature. Late in the night, Kessler watched a series of live feeds from around the globe. In the depths of the Pacific, robotic submarines captured footage of the structure rising slowly, illuminated by the comet's pulses. Massive geometric panels rotated into view, revealing intricate carvings, vents, and channels. No natural process could have formed such patterns. The lines and shapes suggested purpose, intelligence, design. An alien mind, yes, but one intimately linked with the planet itself. The two objects were not merely in proximity.
They were harmonizing. And then, the first audible signal emerged. It was not transmitted through radio or satellite. It was transmitted through the air itself. A low-frequency resonance, felt more than heard, echoed across the planet. Windows vibrated. Trees shivered. People felt the sound in their chests. Kessler and her team quickly realized that 3I/Atlas had tapped into the Earth's ionosphere, using it as a medium to broadcast its communication. This wasn't just a comet, it was a living transmitter, an intelligent presence using natural planetary systems as an amplifier. The world reacted with a mix of awe and panic. Governments issued statements assuring the public that there was no immediate threat, yet they quietly mobilized emergency response teams. Scientists tried to reassure everyone that 3I/Atlas posed no danger, yet none could explain what they had just witnessed. The truth was too vast, too incomprehensible. Humanity could only wait. And then at dawn, something entirely unexpected occurred. The pulses from 3I/Atlas and the structure beneath the ocean synchronized perfectly. Light spread across the sky, a pale golden glow illuminating every continent. The ocean waves pulsed rhythmically, emitting a soft bioluminescent sheen. The planet itself seemed alive. Animals reacted, humans gasped, and even the atmosphere seemed to hum with a new energy. It was beautiful and terrifying, impossible and real. Kessler watched in disbelief. It was as if the Earth itself had become conscious, awakening to a signal it had waited billions of years to receive. 3I/Atlas had not come to destroy, but to reconnect, to awaken the memory hidden beneath the oceans, to reveal the deep truth of the planet and the galaxy. Something older than humanity, older than the solar system, had chosen this moment to make itself known. The world would never be the same. The sky had changed, the oceans had responded, and humanity had glimpsed a reality far larger than itself. For the first time, people understood that life on Earth was not isolated, not alone, and not fully in control of its destiny. Something was guiding, shaping, and watching. Something that came from the stars and had waited for the planet to be ready. And through it all, 3I/Atlas pulsed gently, calmly, patiently. The object had arrived, the planet had awakened, and humanity was witnessing a cosmic reunion it would spend generations trying to understand. The day ended not with explosions, not with panic, not with catastrophe. Instead, it ended in silence, a profound, humbling silence. The stars shone, the oceans glimmered, and the comet hovered, patient, intelligent, and alive. And for the first time, Earth's inhabitants realized that the universe was not just around them, it was within them, and it was speaking.
The days following the awakening felt surreal. Earth's inhabitants were caught between fear, awe, and wonder. The ocean still glimmered, pulsing with the rhythm of 3I/Atlas above, and the oceanic structure had become a permanent source of light and energy. Scientists across the globe worked frantically, decoding the complex signals now pulsing through satellites, underwater sensors, and electromagnetic instruments. Every moment of observation revealed patterns, sequences, and layers of communication previously unimaginable. 3I/Atlas was no longer just a visitor, it was a teacher. Humanity had been handed the first lessons in a curriculum older than time itself. Kessler sat in the observation station, eyes weary but sharp, monitoring the translation algorithms. What was being revealed defied every conventional scientific model. Mathematics, physics, and chemistry were intertwined with concepts that humanity had never imagined. The signals were layered, multidimensional, and fractal in nature, patterns repeated at cosmic and microscopic scales, suggesting that the laws governing the universe were themselves part of a larger design. Energy flows, planetary harmonics, and quantum structures were encoded within sequences that defied traditional computation. "It's not just information," Kessler said to her assistant, barely above a whisper. "It's a framework, a system.
They're showing us how the universe works, from the ground up. The first breakthrough came when the team realized that the signals could be converted into visual representations. When rendered, the sequences revealed structures that resembled molecular frameworks, planetary orbits, and even cosmic strings connecting distant star systems. Each diagram conveyed not just data, but intention. Designs for sustainable energy systems, long-distance communication methods, and new ways to manipulate matter safely. The knowledge was beyond anything humanity had achieved, yet elegantly simple in its essence, as if the universe itself had drawn the diagrams to teach the uninitiated. In the Pacific, the structure beneath the ocean seemed to anticipate each step. As researchers decoded the signals, energy flows from the structure mirrored their progress. Pulses of light and heat emanated in perfect timing, almost as if the ancient sentinel were guiding humanity's comprehension. And 3I Atlas hovering above the surface responded to the ocean's activity, maintaining a perfect balance between the two. It was a system of teaching, demonstration, and calibration, all operating on a scale so vast that humans could only begin to grasp its magnitude. Humanity's first lessons went beyond physics. The signals conveyed principles of life itself. Kessler observed patterns resembling the structures of DNA, cellular replication, and even neural networks. There were instructions on energy transfer, ecological balance, and symbiosis designed to harmonize with planetary systems. It was as if 3I Atlas and the oceanic structure were demonstrating the very rules that governed life across the galaxy, revealing a blueprint for thriving civilizations. Knowledge and morality, science and philosophy, technology and ethics, they were all intertwined, inseparable in the cosmic curriculum. The implications struck deeply. Humanity had spent millennia learning to control the environment through trial and error. Now, without even touching it, an ancient intelligence offered a path to mastery without destruction. A way to harness energy, stabilize ecosystems, and communicate across vast distances. But the lesson came with a warning. Power without understanding, applied without harmony, would be catastrophic. 3I Atlas and the oceanic structure demonstrated both the potential and the responsibility of knowledge. As humanity digested the revelations, subtle shifts occurred worldwide. Engineers and scientists began to replicate energy transfer patterns seen in the signals, producing sustainable power in ways previously thought impossible. Agricultural systems improved as they integrated principles drawn from the sequences, balancing growth and ecosystem health. Communication networks adapted to emulate patterns revealed by the comet, creating faster, safer, and more reliable methods. The planet responded, subtly, to these applications, as though approving of the progress, aligning itself with the harmony being demonstrated. But not all reactions were positive. Political and religious leaders struggled to interpret the significance. Some declared the signals a divine message, others an existential threat. Panic and skepticism spread alongside curiosity and hope. But for those who understood, who truly listened to the rhythm of the pulses, the lesson was clear. Humanity was no longer alone, and the universe was a classroom. Cooperation, curiosity, and understanding were now not merely ethical imperatives, they were survival tools. Kessler often found herself staring at 3I Atlas and the oceanic structure in silence. The comet's pulsing light seemed to respond to her own thoughts, as if acknowledging comprehension. The sentinel beneath the waves mirrored the energy, providing both illumination and resonance. Together, they formed a bridge across space and time, linking humanity to knowledge beyond imagination. It was awe-inspiring and humbling. Humans had reached for the stars and in doing so, discovered a lesson written long before they had walked the earth. By the end of the week, the first full translation of a segment of the signals was achieved. It contained instructions for creating a device capable of capturing and storing energy directly from planetary fields, a system that could provide clean, limitless power without damaging the environment. The design was elegant, simple, and yet impossible without understanding the underlying principles demonstrated in the sequences. Humanity was now equipped with tools to transcend its previous limitations, guided by the intelligence that had traveled across interstellar space and slumbered beneath the ocean. Still, Kessler understood that this was only the beginning. The knowledge was vast, and each decoded message revealed only a fraction of the total curriculum. The universe was far larger, more complex, and more interconnected than humanity could have imagined. 3i Atlas had come not just to teach, but to prepare. The ancient sentinel had waited billions of years for a civilization ready to learn, and now the lesson had begun. It was a challenge, a responsibility, and a gift. As night fell, Kessler stepped outside, looking up at the comet hovering against the backdrop of stars. The ocean beneath the Pacific shimmered faintly, reflecting the pulses of light from above. Humanity had taken its first step towards understanding the message. The universe was alive, intelligent, and deliberate. And for the first time, humanity could listen, learn, and participate. The comet pulsed softly, the ocean responded, and the planet vibrated with knowledge. The message was clear. This was not an ending, but a beginning. Humanity had been invited into a larger cosmic network. The stars were no longer distant points of light. They were connected to life, intelligence, and understanding, waiting for those capable of seeing and listening. And Kessler understood with both awe and trepidation that the lesson of 3i Atlas and the ancient sentinel would continue for the planet, for humanity, and for the generations to come. The universe had opened its classroom, and the first day of instruction had begun.
The planet hummed with a subtle energy that had become almost normal over the past months. But Kessler knew better. Nothing about this was ordinary. Humanity had passed tests, learned lessons, and begun to apply knowledge that defied imagination. Still, the final phase of the awakening approached, a crescendo orchestrated by the comet and the oceanic sentinel beneath the Pacific. The signals grew more complex, more urgent, and more beautiful, as though the universe itself were about to reveal its ultimate secret. The day began like any other, yet everything felt charged. Satellites detected pulses of energy radiating outward from the comet and oceanic structure in precise patterns. Electromagnetic readings spiked, and the resonance reached deep into Earth's core. The planet itself vibrated in perfect synchrony with the pulses. Humanity could feel it in subtle ways: stronger tides, wind patterns that followed perfect arcs, and a warmth that spread through the ground and the seas. The universe was signaling the final lesson, and the world was listening. Kessler and her team gathered at the main observation station, eyes fixed on monitors and instruments. The comet above, 3i/Atlas, pulsed steadily, its light reflecting off the oceans and clouds. Below, the sentinel structure glowed with intricate patterns that no human hand could replicate. The two worked as one, a bridge connecting Earth to something far greater, something beyond comprehension. Every signal, every pulse, every fluctuation had meaning, and humanity had to interpret them correctly. Failure was no longer theoretical. The stakes had risen to the level of planetary survival. The first phase of the final lesson involved synchronization. Humanity had to align its technology, energy grids, and even societal structures with the natural resonance of the planet. Cities implemented systems that harmonized with the pulses, stabilizing weather patterns and mitigating natural disasters. Industries shifted toward methods that worked with rather than against planetary energy flows. The lessons were subtle yet profound. Every action had an effect, every decision a consequence, and every human choice contributed to a collective resonance that now spanned the globe. Kessler observed as the pulses intensified, stretching across oceans and continents. Humanity responded.
Power plants adjusted frequencies to match the comet's rhythm. Communication systems modulated signals to resonate with the oceanic structure. And agricultural systems optimized themselves using energy patterns transmitted directly from the sentinel. The effect was instantaneous and astonishing. Earth itself seemed to awaken, flowing with life, energy, and coherence in ways that were once impossible. Storms calmed, tectonic pressure balanced, and the atmosphere settled into a perfect equilibrium. The planet was alive, and humanity had learned to participate in its life. Then, the second phase began. Direct revelation. The comet and sentinel initiated a sequence that could no longer be interpreted through instruments alone. Humanity had to perceive it intuitively. Millions experienced visions, dreams, and insights simultaneously. Knowledge poured into consciousness as symbols, patterns, and impressions. History, the formation of galaxies, the evolution of life, and the laws governing reality unfolded in human minds in fragments, then as coherent sequences. Those who received the vision saw not only the mechanics of existence, but the interconnectivity of all things, the cosmic network linking stars, planets, and life across light years. The revelations were overwhelming. Some scientists fainted from the sheer magnitude of the information. Others wept in awe. Kessler herself felt a surge of understanding she could barely articulate. The universe was a vast network of intelligence, energy, and harmony. Life was not random. It was intentional, guided by principles that spanned galaxies. The comet and sentinel had waited billions of years for a civilization capable of comprehension. Humanity had finally arrived. The final test came in the form of a coordinated energy challenge. The comet pulsed a sequence designed to measure humanity's ability to apply knowledge responsibly and harmoniously on a global scale. Every energy system, every city grid, and every ecosystem that had integrated lessons from 3I/Atlas and the Sentinel became part of the test. If misapplied, the pulse could trigger localized disasters. If correctly synchronized, it would stabilize Earth and complete the awakening. The world held its collective breath. Kessler guided the team, coordinating responses with scientists across continents. Cities aligned energy flows precisely, oceans responded in perfect synchronization, and atmospheric systems adapted instantaneously. The pulse traveled across the planet, interacting with every system, every organism, every conscious mind connected to the network. It was tense, meticulous work. One miscalculation could undo months of progress. And yet, humanity succeeded. Every signal was correctly interpreted, every system harmonized. Earth responded with a resonance that was both audible and perceptible, a deep, harmonious hum that vibrated through the planet, sky, and seas. The final revelation unfolded. 3I/Atlas emitted a radiant burst of energy, mirrored by the oceanic sentinel. The pulses created a network of light connecting Earth to distant stars. Humans could perceive the faint shimmer of other nodes in the galaxy, structures similar to the Sentinel, ancient and intelligent, waiting to guide civilizations capable of comprehension. The comet's pulses slowed, transitioning from testing to communication. Humanity had passed the final trial and joined the cosmic network. In the aftermath, Earth was transformed. Technology, society, and ecosystems were harmonized with the planet's natural rhythms. Humanity had achieved a level of cooperation, understanding, and responsibility previously unimaginable. The comet remained above, a guardian and teacher, while the oceanic structure continued to pulse softly, a permanent reminder of the knowledge and connection humanity had earned. The network had accepted Earth, and humanity had become part of a larger intelligent system spanning light years. Kessler stood on the observation deck looking up at 3I/Atlas. The comet glowed softly, pulsing in time with the oceanic sentinel. The world below was quiet, peaceful, and balanced. Humanity had survived its first encounter with interstellar intelligence, passed its tests, and learned the lessons of the universe. Knowledge had been granted, but it came with responsibility.
to maintain harmony, to act with awareness, and to continue learning. The stars shone brighter that night, each one a node in the vast cosmic network now visible to humanity. Earth was no longer isolated. It was part of an interstellar community, connected, observed, and guided. The comet pulsed once more, a gentle rhythm that resonated through the planet. And Kessler, exhausted but exhilarated, understood that this was not an ending. It was the beginning of a new era. Humanity had awakened to its place in the cosmos, ready to explore, learn, and grow as part of a universe alive with intelligence, energy, and infinite possibility. The planet hummed with a subtle energy that had become almost normal over the past months. But Kessler knew better. Nothing about this was ordinary. Humanity had passed tests, learned lessons, and begun to apply knowledge that defied imagination. Still, the final phase of the awakening approached, a crescendo orchestrated by the comet and the oceanic sentinel beneath the Pacific. The signals grew more complex, more urgent, and more beautiful, as though the universe itself were about to reveal its ultimate secret. The day began like any other, yet everything felt charged. Satellites detected pulses of energy radiating outward from the comet and oceanic structure in precise patterns. Electromagnetic readings spiked, and the resonance reached deep into Earth's core. The planet itself vibrated in perfect synchrony with the pulses. Humanity could feel it in subtle ways: stronger tides, wind patterns that followed perfect arcs, and a warmth that spread through the ground and the seas. The universe was signaling the final lesson, and the world was listening. Kessler and her team gathered at the main observation station, eyes fixed on monitors and instruments. The comet above, 3I/Atlas, pulsed steadily, its light reflecting off the oceans and clouds. Below, the sentinel structure glowed with intricate patterns that no human hand could replicate. The two worked as one, a bridge connecting Earth to something far greater, something beyond comprehension. Every signal, every pulse, every fluctuation had meaning, and humanity had to interpret them correctly. Failure was no longer theoretical. The stakes had risen to the level of planetary survival. The first phase of the final lesson involved synchronization. Humanity had to align its technology, energy grids, and even societal structures with the natural resonance of the planet. Cities implemented systems that harmonized with the pulses, stabilizing weather patterns and mitigating natural disasters. Industries shifted toward methods that worked with rather than against planetary energy flows. The lessons were subtle yet profound. Every action had an effect, every decision a consequence, and every human choice contributed to a collective resonance that now spanned the globe. Kessler observed as the pulses intensified, stretching across oceans and continents. Humanity responded. Power plants adjusted frequencies to match the comet's rhythm. Communication systems modulated signals to resonate with the oceanic structure. And agricultural systems optimized themselves using energy patterns transmitted directly from the sentinel. The effect was instantaneous and astonishing. Earth itself seemed to awaken, flowing with life, energy, and coherence in ways that were once impossible. Storms calmed, tectonic pressure balanced, and the atmosphere settled into a perfect equilibrium. The planet was alive, and humanity had learned to participate in its life. Then, the second phase began: direct revelation. The comet and sentinel initiated a sequence that could no longer be interpreted through instruments alone. Humanity had to perceive it intuitively. Millions experienced visions, dreams, and insights simultaneously. Knowledge poured into consciousness as symbols, patterns, and impressions. History, the formation of galaxies, the evolution of life, and the laws governing reality unfolded in human minds in fragments, then as coherent sequences. Those who received the vision saw not only the mechanics of existence, but the interconnectivity of all things, the cosmic network linking stars, planets, and life across light years. The revelations were overwhelming.
Some scientists fainted from the sheer magnitude of the information. Others wept in awe. Kessler herself felt a surge of understanding she could barely articulate. The universe was a vast network of intelligence, energy, and harmony. Life was not random. It was intentional, guided by principles that spanned galaxies. The comet and sentinel had waited billions of years for a civilization capable of comprehension. Humanity had finally arrived. The final test came in the form of a coordinated energy challenge. The comet pulsed a sequence designed to measure humanity's ability to apply knowledge responsibly and harmoniously on a global scale. Every energy system, every city grid, and every ecosystem that had integrated lessons from 3I/Atlas and the Sentinel became part of the test. If misapplied, the pulse could trigger localized disasters. If correctly synchronized, it would stabilize Earth and complete the awakening. The world held its collective breath. Kessler guided the team, coordinating responses with scientists across continents. Cities aligned energy flows precisely, oceans responded in perfect synchronization, and atmospheric systems adapted instantaneously. The pulse traveled across the planet, interacting with every system, every organism, every conscious mind connected to the network. It was tense, meticulous work. One miscalculation could undo months of progress. And yet, humanity succeeded. Every signal was correctly interpreted, every system harmonized. Earth responded with a resonance that was both audible and perceptible, a deep, harmonious hum that vibrated through the planet, sky, and seas. The final revelation unfolded. 3I/Atlas emitted a radiant burst of energy, mirrored by the oceanic sentinel. The pulses created a network of light connecting Earth to distant stars. Humans could perceive the faint shimmer of other nodes in the galaxy, structures similar to the Sentinel, ancient and intelligent, waiting to guide civilizations capable of comprehension. The comet's pulses slowed, transitioning from testing to communication. Humanity had passed the final trial and joined the cosmic network. In the aftermath, Earth was transformed. Technology, society, and ecosystems were harmonized with the planet's natural rhythms. Humanity had achieved a level of cooperation, understanding, and responsibility previously unimaginable. The comet remained above, a guardian and teacher, while the oceanic structure continued to pulse softly, a permanent reminder of the knowledge and connection humanity had earned. The network had accepted Earth, and humanity had become part of a larger intelligent system spanning light years. Kessler stood on the observation deck looking up at 3I/Atlas. The comet glowed softly, pulsing in time with the oceanic sentinel. The world below was quiet, peaceful, and balanced. Humanity had survived its first encounter with interstellar intelligence, passed its tests, and learned the lessons of the universe. Knowledge had been granted, but it came with responsibility to maintain harmony, to act with awareness, and to continue learning. The stars shone brighter that night, each one a node in the vast cosmic network now visible to humanity. Earth was no longer isolated. It was part of an interstellar community, connected, observed, and guided. The comet pulsed once more, a gentle rhythm that resonated through the planet. And Kessler, exhausted but exhilarated, understood that this was not an ending. It was the beginning of a new era. Humanity had awakened to its place in the cosmos, ready to explore, learn, and grow as part of a universe alive with intelligence, energy, and infinite possibility.
Humanity had changed forever. The arrival of 3I/ATLS and the oceanic sentinel beneath the Pacific was no longer a story of fear or speculation. It was history, science, and awakening intertwined. For months, people had watched the comet pulse above the Earth, had observed the oceanic structures glow beneath the waves, and had learned to listen to a rhythm that had existed for billions of years. The universe, once distant and unknowable, had revealed itself as a network of intelligence, guidance, and purpose. Kessler reflected on the journey. From the first detection of 3I ATLS to the decoding of the signals, humanity had been tested, challenged, and ultimately transformed. The comet had arrived not as a threat, but as a teacher, showing that true understanding required responsibility, cooperation, and harmony. Every lesson learned had come with a consequence. Every discovery had been paired with the reminder that power without awareness could destroy as easily as it could create. Humanity had risen to the challenge. The knowledge granted by 3I ATLS was vast. Energy systems that harmonized with planetary fields allowed humans to create clean, sustainable power. Agriculture had become an art of balance, guided by principles of planetary resonance. Communication systems span distances far beyond conventional technology, connecting humans to each other and, potentially, to distant nodes in the galaxy. The lessons were both practical and philosophical. Humanity had not only learned new tools, they had been taught to think differently, to perceive the universe as a living, intelligent system. Perhaps the most profound change was subtle, invisible to instruments and satellites. Humanity's perception of its place in the cosmos had shifted. No longer isolated, humans understood that Earth was part of a vast network, ancient and deliberate, designed to connect intelligent life across light years. The stars were no longer untouchable points of light. They were participants, nodes, and guides. The universe was not a passive backdrop. It was alive, attentive, and patient, waiting for civilizations capable of understanding and responsibility. Kessler often walked along the coast, watching the ocean shimmer with the faint glow of the sentinel beneath. The comet pulsed above, steady and calm, as though acknowledging humanity's comprehension. People from all walks of life now felt the connection, some in visions, others in subtle intuitive impressions. Societies adapted, slowly but surely, to live in harmony with the planet and the network guiding it. Conflicts remained, as they always would, but the framework provided by 3I ATLS allowed cooperation and awareness to flourish. Humanity had learned, in a short time, what took billions of years for the universe itself to perfect. There were still mysteries. Not everything the comet revealed could be fully comprehended. Some sequences defied human logic, stretching the mind into abstract, multidimensional concepts. But that was the beauty of the network. It demanded curiosity, patience, and the willingness to learn continually. The awakening was ongoing. Humanity had passed the initial tests, integrated knowledge, and established contact with the cosmic system, but the journey had only begun. The universe, alive and intelligent, was an infinite classroom. In the quiet moments, Kessler thought about the first fears that had gripped humanity when the comet 3I ATLS was discovered. The comet had once seemed like a harbinger of doom, an extinction-level threat. Now it was clear that true danger had never been in the object itself, but in humanity's ignorance and inability to act with awareness. By rising to the challenge, by learning, listening, and harmonizing, humans had turned a potential catastrophe into a revelation, an opportunity, and a new beginning. The oceanic sentinel pulsed gently, sending waves of light across the Pacific. 3I ATLS hovered above, maintaining its patient rhythm. Humanity had finally understood that knowledge alone was insufficient. Wisdom, harmony, and responsibility were the true keys to survival. The network had prepared humanity for more than technology. It had prepared the species for participation in the cosmos. Earth was no longer an isolated world. It was a member of a vast, intelligent system. And humans were not merely inhabitants, they were now students, partners, and stewards. Kessler looked up at the night sky. Stars twinkled with familiar constellations, yet now she saw something more. Faint pulses, subtle shifts of light, signals from distant nodes waiting for civilizations capable of understanding. Humanity had taken its first steps toward that cosmic network, proving that it could learn, adapt, and act in harmony. The comet and the sentinel would remain, not as overseers but as guides, illuminating the path forward. The universe had opened itself to Earth, and humanity had accepted the invitation. And in that realization, a quiet joy settled over the planet. Humanity had faced the unknown, met it with courage and intellect, and emerged transformed. The stars were no longer distant mysteries, they were connected, alive, and welcoming. Earth was no longer alone. Knowledge, responsibility, and connection had converged, and the awakening was complete. The hum of 3I ATLS, the shimmer of the oceanic sentinel, and the pulse of the planet itself became a symphony of existence, a reminder that the universe was vast, intelligent, and infinitely generous to those willing to learn. As the night deepened, the comet pulsed one final time, soft and steady, a heartbeat of light over the awakened planet. The oceans shimmered, the winds whispered, and humanity slept with the knowledge that it had been chosen not by chance, but by purpose. The cosmos had revealed its secrets, humanity had listened, and the journey of understanding had begun. The universe was alive, and Earth had finally become a conscious participant in the grand infinite dance of existence.
What you're about to explore is not just another space disaster scenario. It's a journey into one of the most terrifying what-ifs in modern astronomy. The question of what would actually happen if a massive interstellar comet, older than our own solar system, slammed into Earth. Imagine a cosmic visitor so ancient that it predates the sun, so fast that nothing in our planetary neighborhood even compares, and so powerful that a single impact would erase nearly all life on our world. This is 3I Atlas, only the third confirmed interstellar object humanity has ever discovered. A wandering metal-rich comet born in the violent early days of the Milky Way, forged long before Earth even existed. It has drifted across the galaxy for billions of years, untouched, unseen, and unknown, until it finally crossed paths with our solar system. But to understand why 3I Atlas is so terrifying, we need to look at the first interstellar visitor we ever detected, Oumuamua. You probably remember the headlines. The long, cigar-shaped mystery rock that came screaming through our solar system at impossible speeds. No comet tail, no normal behavior, just a strange acceleration, bizarre shape, and a trajectory that made scientists question everything from comet physics to alien technology. But as strange as Oumuamua was, it is nothing compared to 3I Atlas. Because while Oumuamua was relatively small, harmless, and just passing through, 3I Atlas is enormous, potentially 14 times larger, coated with ancient metals, venting carbon dioxide ice, and moving with a velocity that makes even large asteroids look slow. This thing is a true cosmic relic, a piece of the galaxy's deep past, a traveler from an era of violent starbirth, supernovas, and chaotic gravity, a frozen witness to a time when the universe was far younger and far more dangerous. And here's the shocking part. If 3I Atlas ever hit Earth, even by the slightest change of trajectory, it wouldn't just cause damage. It wouldn't just destroy cities or continents. It would unleash more than 4 times the destructive energy of the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. Superheated plasma, firestorms across continents, planet-wide tsunamis, earthquakes beyond the Richter scale, years of darkness and freezing temperatures, and finally a greenhouse rebound so intense that surviving life would be cooked after being frozen. An extinction-level event in every sense of the phrase. But this story is not just about destruction, it's also about discovery. Because objects like 3I Atlas are cosmic time capsules. They reveal secrets about what the galaxy looked like billions of years before Earth formed. Secrets we may never get the chance to observe again. So in this 3-chapter journey, we're going to break down where 3I Atlas truly comes from, why it's unlike anything in our solar system, what would happen step by step if it struck Earth, and finally, what its existence means for the future of humanity. Now, take a deep breath, because this is the story of what would happen if one of the oldest, fastest, and most dangerous objects in the galaxy came straight for Earth.